All right, so it's just afternoon, so I'll go ahead and start this.
Okay.
So welcome everyone to Office Hours. It's a 30-minute webinar to help you successfully achieve SIP certified. So from December to May, we'll be hosting 6 of these webinars to touch on all 14 of the standards chapters. And SIP certified staff and experts will be online to help answer your questions. So some general tips for completing your application this year: do your requirements first, since they are often the most difficult questions and you must achieve them to get certified. And when you go through and answer your management enhancement questions, answer the ones that you can first, and then keep a running list of the ones that you can come back to later so you can stack those points as well. And we also recommend using the photos list. It's a list of all the standards questions that require photos. So you can take this list with you, head out to your vineyard, take all your pictures, and you have it all in one place. And I went ahead and linked that in the chat. It's the 4th link down. And so for those of you who are new to the database, I will pop over there real quick and show you what some of the symbols look like. Sorry, let me make sure I have that open. Okay. All right, so here are some of the symbols that you'll see in the database. So this leaf here means that this question pertains to vineyards. The tank means it pertains to wineries. And so when you see them both, it means that both types of properties must answer the question. When you see a little calendar icon, that means that it is a time-specific answer. So you do have to input a time here each time you answer the question. And right here, you'll see a little double arrow. So that means that this question is part of a management group. So if you have multiple properties, you can create a management group, and then you only have to answer these questions once, and all the answers populate to all of the properties that are in that management group. And then the last icon is this handshaking icon. And that means in addition to documenting the standard, it also gets verified with an on-site inspection. And let me stop the share. Okay. Great, so that was all the icons. And so each of these office hour webinars is going to focus on 2 to 3 chapters, and then we'll have some time for Q&A at the end. We'll call out the standards by number so you know which ones that we're talking about. And while each of these webinars focuses on the specific chapters, you can feel free to bring any questions that you have. Just please try to refer to them by a standard number, for example, 5.4.1, so we can pull it up and read through it with you. And if it's your first year getting SIP certified, know that it generally takes 60 to 80 hours to document everything, but that's just your first year. After that, it'll take around 20 hours to maintain it. And of course, you're not alone. Staff and experienced people, our committee members, we're all here to help you. So if you have any questions along the way or need guidance, documentation, anything like that, just reach out and we are happy to help you. So this 3rd office hours webinar will cover chapters 2, which is Vineyard Acquisition, Establishment, and Management, Chapter 10, Fruit Quality, and Chapter 12, Continuing Education. And we're joined today by Daryl. Hi, Daryl.
Hello.
Daryl is currently with Monterey Pacific, and he was on the committee that originally wrote the SIP certified standards and is still on the technical advisory committee now. So he helps us review the chapters every single year. We have a meeting and go over a few chapters. So let's go ahead and jump in with Chapter 2, Daryl. So what were some of the requirements that you noted as you were going through these?
So Chapter 2 covers a lot of ground. I wish I'd read it before I agreed to this, but I guess it's too late now. So the first one, the pre-plant purchase, has a very easy requirement that you need to basically have a soil map of your property, which is available at USDA Web Soil Survey. It's literally a 10-minute generated report. So it's a very easy requirement. The management points are a lot more difficult to achieve, and I'm going to break the rules because I didn't label each one of these with 2.1.2.
I'll try to catch up.
Okay, so the testing soil for physical and chemical properties, 2.1.2. That requires backhoes, sending soil samples to laboratories. It's time consuming and can be expensive, but very required to do a good job in establishing a vineyard. You have to 2.1.3, you have to test each horizon and send that sample in. So it is expensive. And I don't have the number on this, but if soil conditions limit vine growth, did you map where those conditions occur? And I guess you could base that off the USDA soils map, or you're going to be doing a backhoe pit every 2 acres, or maybe hiring a firm to do electrical conductivity testing to see where it changes. It just depends on how in depth you want to go. Some of the easier management requirements in this is one of them, if there were physical constraints, did you rip? Pretty easy, yes, no. Did you incorporate organic matter? Pretty easy, yes, no. List impaired water bodies that are next to your vineyard. I believe there's now an online map for that, or you can contact your water board to find out that. So those are some of the easier management enhancements.
Awesome. And those were 2.1 point, oh gosh, I just had it. 5, I think, was the soil conditions that would limit vine growth. 2.1.7 was the physical impediments, and 2.1.8 was organic matter.
I'm sorry, I didn't label each of my notes with the.
All good. It helps because you're describing them really well.
And in the 2 requirements, 2.2, so 2.2.1, basically it's asking if you tested for soil pests. And maybe we should move that in 2.1 with all the other soil testings. But if it was previous agriculturally farmed, it needs to be tested for soil pests. I assume nematodes and phlox rot. And then the second requirement is, did you test vines for virus prior to planting, which requires a trip over to the nursery ahead of time, digging plants out of boxes, taking cuttings, and another lab expense. One of the easier ME's management enhancements is a map showing rootstock, scion, and clone combinations. So that's a fairly easy one.
Yeah.
And yes, I don't know the numbers.
That's all right. That one is 2.2.1. It's actually a requirement. You must document rootstock, scion, and clone choices indicated on the ranch map. Perfect. And that's just as easy as just marking up your ranch map then, right? Mm-hmm. And then uploading that. Perfect. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah. And did I miss anything there? Do we want to go to 2.3?
Yes, let's move to 2.3.
So spacing, orientation, and trellis selection. There's no requirement under this. It's could be one of the more difficult management enhancements, depending on the level of detail you're looking for, and if you want to pay somebody to generate a map showing slope aspect and total acres with different levels of erosion risk based on slope.
So then that is something that has to be generated by a outside party?
Not necessarily. If you have an in-house GIS guru, you can do it fairly easy.
Okay.
The shape files and data are out there. It's just having somebody with the knowledge in-house that can generate that. Some of the easy, and I shouldn't do it this way, but the easier management enhancements, vine spacing based on soil type, rootstock, and variety. Few guidelines on rootstocks are out there, but there's no right or wrong. So I don't think an inspector can ever say, no, you don't get those points because you did it wrong. Depends. I work with, wineries that want a cordon 21 inches off the ground. That's wrong, but they say they get better quality. So those are some easy ones. Your trellis and training system designed to optimize canopy microclimate. Again, that's another one where you just have to show you put some thought into it. It doesn't necessarily have a yes, no answer or a right or wrong answer. So they're fairly easy points to get. And then we go to 2.4, canopy management.
Okay, yeah.
And there's no requirement. Some of the more time-consuming points to get are the pruning weight, so you can calculate your Abaz pruning weight to yield.
That's 2.4.2.
Yeah. And then one of the easy ones, if needed, are you shoot thinning leaf pulling? Again, there's no right or wrong as long as you're meeting the winery's quality requirements. And there's all sorts of, we can go into canopy management for an hour, but get this over with. We'll go on to 2.5, tissue analysis. And the requirement is tissue samples based on management zones from within the last 12 months. And in-house, we base our management zones on how we can fertigate. So there's no sense having a bunch of different samples if you can't precision fertilize that area, which cuts down on the number of samples, because the sampling, again, is time consuming and a lab is involved.
Right. And how do you go about finding a lab to do these tests?
There's several available in California.
Yeah.
That if you do grape tissue analysis in California, Google it, it'll come up with a list of labs.
Perfect, yeah.
And then one of the difficult management enhancements, at least for me, because I've never been able to do it in 28 years, is if your vine exhibits nutritional problems, did you correlate with tissue samples and take corrective action? The tissue samples don't always agree with what your eye is seeing. So you can take them and document it and get the management enhancement points, but unless they're extreme visual nutritional deficiencies, it's hard to pin it to a tissue sample.
Interesting. That'd be more of a soil thing, maybe?
No, not necessarily. Just that vines don't always cooperate like the textbooks say they should.
Okay. And that's 2.5.2 for those of you following along.
So, and it also says you take corrective action, which I assume means some type of fertilizer application, whether it's an organic or a chemical. And after and I don't know what number this is either, but after taking action, did you resample tissue? Again, that's, you can resample, but a lot of times it's hard to see the response.
Yeah, but as long as you resample, though, you do get those management
yeah, you
points.
get the points.
And that's 2.5.3.
Okay. So, and then 2.6 is the section on fertilizer. And the requirements of is you must base annual nutrient application on the vineyard's nutrient plan, including nutrient content from soil, water, and tissue samples, and timing to optimize utilization. That's can be difficult. It's important to know all those parameters, but I can't honestly tell you how much potassium my soil is going to mineralize this year and get a ballpark estimate. but I think if you put in there that you gave it the best shot, you did the research, you have the water sample telling you how many parts per million nitrogen, you've got the tissue samples, and you brought that all together and put together some type of budget that you'll meet that requirement.
Right.
The second requirement is to annually add organic matter. And they do accept mulching your cover crop as organic matter. So you don't necessarily have to be spreading compost every year. As long as you've got a cover crop and you mow it a few times, you're adding organic matter back. For me, a couple of easy questions in that chapter for management points. If you use pumice, has it been properly composted? Is municipal, the other one is municipal green waste used in the compost. And those two are easy to get because all you have to do is talk to the person making the compost, and they should be able to tell you what temperature they bring the compost up to ensure that you're not introducing pathogens, or weed seeds are a big one. So they should be able, so those are easy unless you're trying to do it in-house, and making good compost is difficult. So some of the difficult ones, one of them, and I don't know what number, if you have nitrogen requirements, are you planting nitrogen fixers? It's hard to prove you're achieving what you want by doing that, but you get the points if you're doing it. It doesn't say you have to prove that it's working. And another management enhancement that I jokingly say is difficult is irrigate to reduce leaching. You're not putting on an enormous amount of water, and then you have to provide the irrigation records, which always seems to be difficult because it's hard to get them out of the irrigator. They don't always document as well as you would like them to.
Yeah, those are important to have. I know they come up a few times in the standards in general.
Yes. I think that covers, real quick, chapter 2.
Yeah, that was all the session.
Okay, then go on to chapter 10, grape sourcing and fruit quality. And I apologize this. I took it from a grower standpoint, not a winery standpoint.
That is totally fine.
So the requirement for chapter 10 is bricks, total acid, and pH samples. You have to provide a record. Now in the requirement, it doesn't say how often you have to do it and how many you need to take, but you need at least one sample with bricks, total acid, and pH.
Right.
And we do it in-house, and it's very time-consuming and expensive procedure to set up your own lab or to pay ETS or someone like that to do the analysis for you. So if you do it once, I think you meet the requirement.
Yeah, just at least one annual test, and then it does have to include all 3 of those parameters.
Right. And then down in the management enhancements, it talks about weekly sampling for the 3 parameters, which has to include all 3 to get the points. And it gets expensive, and timing is tough. And I don't know, because I know a lot of wineries do their own sampling. Will an inspector accept the winery records of that?
Yes. As long as the fruit from the vineyard is being tested.
Okay. So that might be another way to get those points. For us, the other hard points to prove is we're equating the phenolic data that the wineries get with our management practice in the vineyard. Getting phenolic data is difficult from some wineries.
Mhm.
If it's an in-house vineyard where it's a vineyard winery, that would probably be a lot easier to achieve that. But getting the phenolics data for us has been difficult in the past.
Mm.
Some of the easy management enhancements, did a winery rep visit the vineyard at least once? You give their name. That's fairly easy. And the other one is having a procedure in place to monitor for smoke taint. So just write it up. It doesn't say you have to be doing the sampling. You don't have to provide data. It's just you put thought into it and know what you're going to do when the wildfires come.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that's 10.1.13 for the smoke one. Let's see. Yeah, the weekly maturity analysis, that's 10.1.6. Inviting a representative, that's 10.1.3. So they're all in this 10.1 section, pretty easy to track down.
And then the last chapter they asked me to review was chapter 12, continuing education.
Mm-hmm.
The requirement is organization must have 20 hours of continuing ed annually, which is a pretty easy requirement to meet because it doesn't have to be DPR hours or CCA hours, as long as one of your guys is going to a meeting or you're going to the meetings, the hours add up pretty quick. If you attended the Sustainable Expo, I think you meet that with that one meeting.
Yeah, the Ag Expo has a lot of hours, so that's on there. We have links to the Vineyard team online courses, which all count towards these 20 hours. All Vineyard teams tailgate meetings, those all count as well. So they're all linked here. And yes, so 20 hours if you're just certifying a vineyard or a winery, and if you're certifying both, it does go up to 40 hours. But again, they don't have to be CCA or DPR approved, just as long as they're pertaining to the business.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be vineyard either. It can be, safety meetings, wage and hour meetings, all those things that we have to keep our eye on to stay in business.
Yeah.
Other requirement is a procedure in place to maintain your sustainable certification. And it calls for contact person, login, username and password on the website. Fairly easy requirement to meet, but also important. Our sustainability director went out on maternity leave, and we realized that none of us knew the password and username. Had to go to the hard copy, and it was written up in the procedure so we could get on with life.
Oh, see, there you go. Yeah. And then if you're on currently into the database, we can assign multiple people to a property. So you can definitely share a login. If you need individuals, we can set that up for you. And then if somebody leaves your organization, you need them removed, just let us know. Same thing if people join, let us know. We can add them on there and make sure that everybody has access to the things that they need access to.
And to finish up, one of the difficult management enhancement points is a procedure in place to comply with changes of relevant legislation. I mean, that is several full-time jobs in California. So who has the time to do that and grow grapes? That's a difficult one. So and that's what I have for the 3 chapters.
Perfect. Yeah, that covered everything really well. I know chapter 2 is kind of a doozy. There's a lot in there. Yeah.
It's a big one.
It is. Yeah. Luckily, though, these other 2 are pretty quick. There's really, I think, 10 and 12 both just have that first section and just a couple requirements. So a little bit easier to go through. And then again, the continuing education is something that you can work on all year long. You don't have to bust it out all in a couple months. Like it's over a 12-month period. So, if you take some classes early in the year, upload them then, or like keep your registration page if you have that, if it shows the start and stop time, then we like know how many hours, and that's how those are counted. But yeah, again, something easy to kind of start working on a little earlier and maintain throughout the year. So let's see, we have about 4 minutes left. So let's see, no open questions in the Q&A yet. But if you guys have any, just pop them in the chat and we will hang on just a little bit longer, catch all those. And then if you don't have questions now, and then maybe you start going through them and something comes up, you can shoot me an email. I'm Whitney@vineyardteam.org, and I will help you out with that. Can help find resources, contacts, reach out to maybe Daryl again, ask him some more technical questions, see what comes up. All right, let's give it like another minute or so.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, nothing is coming up, so I think we'll go ahead and call it.
Okay.
All right. Well, Daryl, thank you so much for joining us.
You bet.
Really
you.
appreciate your time going through all these with us.
Thanks.
All right. I will see you on Friday.
Okay, I will be there.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.